Yeah. Welcome and thank you for joining us for our presentation of Housing 2020 at Leading Age, New Jersey and Delaware. I am Dan Godfrey, partner and architect at RLPS Architects. I'm joined today by Carl Tarbell, Executive Director of Masonic Villages of Burlington. I'd like to start by introducing and giving a little bit of history of Carl and I and why this dynamic works so well and where we've been together, what we've done together, so we can speak to and you'll understand our perspective as it relates to Housing 2020. Carl, when we met, we were in the midst of a redevelopment project. You have over 400 residents there, but when we started, you had 0 independent living. It was essentially a healthcare campus. And there were a lot of dynamics about that financially and in terms of future growth that were limiting for you. So we had to deal with that. And coming in, we looked very closely at the infrastructure that you had. We ultimately ended up building 167 apartments, 66 cottages, and converting a portion of your healthcare to memory support for an assisted living group of people. There were portions of that building that were sitting vacant. That gave us the opportunity to get in there and kind of kick off this repositioning for you. Took what were essentially healthcare beds, converted them into a mix of 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units. You can see that those rooms were very small, didn't have a lot of amenities to show at the time to an independent living market. So we ended up getting in there and repositioning. Both 1-bedroom and 2 bedrooms. Really, if you look at this existing bedroom, Carl, this is what you had. And it's not too uncommon for, a healthcare product, double occupancy. But what we were looking to create was something that would appeal to a different market, to give you an opportunity to reposition financially and look towards the future. So those single bedroom healthcare products turned into a residential product where we added kitchens and living spaces that were very marketable. Here you can see just an across view of what one of those rooms looked like. And the whole hospitality and residential feel was lacking. It was a little bit sterile at the time, a little bit like a hospital. Introducing those kind of rich colors, the residential kitchens with some good materials really changed the face of what you had to offer there at Masonic of Burlington. And it's all about the kitchens and baths. So, those kind of accessible healthcare bathrooms became more residential driven. We're addressing some of those mobility type issues, creating barrier-free showers, and very residential vanities for the folks who are looking at that product. We ultimately took a piece of your property. You have 450 acres, but there was a piece that was immediately adjacent to your main campus. It seemed like a prime location for cottages to get a new product and to build out part of your greenfield space and to keep people close to your central facilities. I think that was one of our primary goals when we looked at that piece of property. And they became pretty standard duplex cottages, a nice cluster, a good start in terms of offering a cottage project. Just a very simple offering of 2 different cottage types. And I think it worked out well, and they sold very well for you. Is that not the case, Carl?
Yeah, it was a very, very strong product that has a lot of square footage, and people really enjoy it. And we're really sold out at this particular point and ready to move on to some additional phases that we'll talk about a little bit later.
And we have opportunity. We've looked at your property in a couple of different ways, and there is a master plan for a larger build out, but together we're in a place where we're trying to figure out, with the products that you've created, the opportunities for assisted living, what would make sense to build, to design, and to build next. So that leads us to right into our conversation for Housing 2020. And when we put this this concept together for this presentation, the last thing we had on our mind was a pandemic, but here we are, right? So in a social distancing world, it's pretty easy to find Waldo because there are no crowds. So that's one upside of the pandemic. But in talking about it, right away when everything started, a lot hit the media, a lot specific to life care communities, the realities of how it was going to affect people who were at risk. And I know you lived through that, Carl, and it wasn't a fun time.
Yeah, Dan, you're right. It really came out of nowhere and put us all kind of back on our heels and created a lot of fear. But it also, I think, after we adjusted to that, and we've got a super involved senior team, we tried to flip that around and look at the advantages and the positives. What were you going to do to provide that support? And really proud of the team that I have the privilege to work with, because everybody really pivoted quickly. We figured out how to really take care of everyone without being able to bring everyone together. Getting into the delivery of meals and just flipping around and figuring out how we're going to take our personnel and do everything we can to support the elders that live on our campus. And we did it rapidly, and I think that was very important, because it led to folks feeling safe, feeling supported, families feeling supported, and that was the most important thing when everything kicked off, was to allay the fears, make people feel comfortable, increase communication, and it's still a challenge, as we all know. This is gonna drag on for some time now, but it really put a lot of pressure on everybody. And I think as an industry, we did very, very well. The media wasn't always fair to us, but as an industry, I know I'm very proud of how we've handled the constraints and the scenarios that presented themselves.
Well, we've been proud to be part of your inner circle, Carl, and to be able to hear and to learn from your experiences. And you're absolutely right. When everything kicked off, there was a lot of fear in the industry. And, the question was, are seniors going to feel comfortable going to life plan communities with all of the media coverage indicating the amount of growth, the amount of challenges that those communities were experiencing? It was a challenge that was common for not just the not-for-profit world, but also the for-profit world. What we find interesting is that the two markets, the two providers handled it differently. We're noting that the for-profit industry often passed all those added costs for protocol onto residents, whereas groups like yours worked to abate added costs to your residents. You're very mission-driven in terms of how you handle those things. And you explained to me when we were talking yesterday about some opportunities that kind of came out of this that helped you balance the finances and not pass those costs on to your residents.
Yeah, Dan, you're right. And when we talked about it yesterday, one of the things that kind of jumped out at me and had happened in the industry was that you're trying to figure out how to support your population, but you're also trying to be fiscally responsible or be good stewards of the resources that you have. The mission for us is to be good stewards, and some of the decisions that we made was to take our management team and really they would move away from a management function, but be working with residents on a daily basis. We started covering 7 days a week and adjusting our weekend schedules so that there was support and people were there. There were furloughs in the industry. We made a decision for two reasons not to furlough staff. Number one was to provide the additional support, love, and attention that everybody needed so they felt secure. But we also took the opportunity to maintain the relationships we had with those individuals in our database, those individuals that we knew were going to be moving in, but were going to delay things because of some of the COVID restrictions that were put in place in New Jersey. And it's been really helpful for us because our recovery, as things have cleared up and gotten stronger, has kind of been that V shape that they talk about when they use a lot of economic terms, is that we've been able to recover our census and population across the campus and continue to be very strong. We moved into a lot of Zoom presentations to folks, and it worked very, very well. But that constant connection, I think, reinforced our philosophy of caring for everyone, and it helped us feel safe, and made us, really, our calling is to take care of others, and people really rose to those occasions. And I think everybody feeling comfortable really made it feel like we're kind of a fortress against the COVID restrictions that were out there. But there were also other opportunities where, under the CARES Act, the government was providing some additional resources. So I think that philosophy enabled us to really not think about finances, but to really stay focused on our mission, make sure that we were doing the things that we needed to do. And I really believe that it's put us in a very strong position to not only recover in the market, but be prepared to move forward, because things clearly are not going to be the same for the next several years. And even after that, I think it's really caused the industry to look at amenities, look at our nimbleness, look at our ability to make adjustments rather rapidly. And everyone in the market that is nimble and can move rapidly to reposition as we're evaluating is going to be in a stronger position.
Yeah, Carl, it reminds me of the recession back in 2008. And it's exactly that attitude, that perseverance, and as you indicate, a philosophy of maintaining relationships, caring for people, and keeping your business model strong and following your mission. It's exactly that mentality that brought people out of that recession stronger than what they were going in. So I think and appreciate that you guys are embracing that, because I think that you and others like you with that mentality and that philosophy are going to come out of this pandemic stronger than what you were going in. You are in New Jersey competing with a lot of for-profits. This is just a list of for-profits in your area, and the amount of independent living units that they have. 279 communities in New Jersey for 55 plus active adult retirement communities. That's a lot of competition. And what's happening there is that whole philosophy of residential living, hospitality driven design, it's pushing everybody, for-profit and not-for-profits, to make sure that the amenities they're offering, the products they're offering, are on the leading edge. The challenge is, as we're discussing, is that realities and media-driven concerns have people questioning, do I really want to make the leap? Some of those folks, even prior to the pandemic, were saying, you know what, we're going to stay home. 66% people indicate that they want to stay home because their house is conveniently located to their amenities, their family, their infrastructure. So you really have to be competitive. You have to be offering something that doesn't exist. However, you also shared with me that you kind of had a fortunate development with your company for the people who want to stay home. You developed a home care department about a year ago that has flourished during this time of the pandemic. Is that not the case?
We did, Dan. It was interesting. It was something that we wanted to add to the portfolio of products that we have along our continuum for our CCRC. And interestingly enough, the pandemic has sort of cut off families feeling secure, supporting their families. It's also been, you can't get into the community. And so we've seen an interesting dichotomy here where home care could not provide enough support for the community in general. So they were turning to us and saying that if they needed that support within our continuum, could we provide that? And so they turned to us, and because we had a home care product, we've seen it explode, so that individuals on our campus are using more services. We're trying to provide those services in the community, but it really turned out to be a distinct advantage because family members and the individuals thinking about moving were able to see that they could get more support, still maintain their independence. And then the other interesting scenario regarding that was, in the past downturn in 07, 08, real estate values and everything crashed. In this particular case, the real estate market has actually gotten stronger. People are able to sell their homes rather quickly. So it's kind of changing the sales cycle, and people are looking for that independence, but then they're looking for the supports. And we just happen to have those products on our campus and within our company to provide that. And again, it's been a huge advantage for our team, for our residents and our families and loved ones' families to come in and look and see all those supports, feel more secure, because they were feeling as though they were cut off from their parents living in the community. So having all these products and being able to make the adjustments has been very, very important, and we've been able to be nimble enough to accomplish that.
Yeah, it's impressive, Carl, and really that becomes not only a positive byproduct of the pandemic, but passive marketing. You extend your services to the community; those folks see what your organization is all about, and it becomes kind of a feeder for your independent living product.
Yeah, without a doubt, it's interesting just because we're a brand in the market that has been around for a long time, and for people to see how quickly we've changed and adjusted, and obviously in working with you has been fabulous to be able to set our campus up for that type of success, because we're located in an interesting market, close to Philadelphia, close to smaller suburban communities, and have a real rural feel. So we really appeal to a large marketplace, and your guidance and support and partnership with us in developing this campus has just been amazing, and we look forward to continuing.
Yeah, hopefully we have more opportunity. We certainly have more opportunity. Hopefully we can get some things rolling. Interesting insight into the mentality out there. We had a recent opportunity to partner with Plant Moran and Retirement Dynamics to do a survey across the industry. Interesting statistics and feedback that came from that survey. 77% of people were glad to be living in a community during the pandemic. 86 were glad they made the decision to move, and 93% of people who were in those communities felt that those communities were taking special precautions to keep them safe. So regardless of what the media is saying, the people that are in the kind of continuum of care of a life care community, the feedback is positive, very positive.
It's been great. What's really happened with us is that we immediately took the mindset that whatever we can do to provide support to you, we'll figure out how to do. And so right away, letting everybody know that don't worry about anything that you thought you had to do, we'll figure out how to do it. And our redeployment of our team enabled us to do that. And what's really gratifying is that our residents are so thankful. They share it every day. They don't say it once. It's just really makes us feel great about what we're doing and supporting them. And now we have a lot of people that want to get into this environment for that support and caring in anticipation or fear of what the winter may bring as far as these results.
Yeah, and contrary to some of the fear that we saw in the media as soon as the pandemic kicked off, 74% of prospective residents haven't changed their time frame due to the pandemic. We're seeing that 40% would still accelerate their move-in decision based on a change in health. 33% would still make the move if a preferred residence became available. So really in the marketplace, confidence is still high. And I think because of the perseverance of organizations like yours, people are looking at it and saying, you know what, we may actually have better services and be cared for and have kind of take that worry off the plate of our family faster if we move into a life care community. That's a good segue to talking about the various products we have. And as we go through, we'll highlight some of the things that are positives and negatives. Pocket communities, a good quote from Ross Chapin. Pocket neighborhoods provide the basis for sense of belonging and meaning, small-scale communities, and a large-scale world. Some of the real positives of these pocket-type neighborhoods, as opposed to the traditional cottage that you have there, Carl, is they create a lot of space right in the central portion. They force vehicular traffic to the perimeters and put pedestrian traffic right in the middle. And when we're talking about the pandemic and having opportunities for social distancing, but still not social isolation, opportunities for people to still get together but maintain that social distance. This is a perfect product for that. Again, here's a great diagram that shows the whole intent of a pocket neighborhood of clustering those areas together, creating green space in the middle and forcing vehicular traffic to the outside perimeter, allowing people to get together in a nice, safe center environment.
I think this model is going to be very, very relative to the next phases of our master plan as we begin to work together to develop them. I know our board and the rest of our team sees that type of an environment as a true enhancement, but also a differentiation on our campus. Even though the cottages have been very popular, some of the feedback is they'd like something a little more centralized to a common area, that maybe not something as big. So as you showed our development plan earlier, those are the areas that we can talk about and modify, and it fits a lot of what you're going to describe further on in the presentation. But I think that it's going to be wildly successful on our campus, fitting the needs and the demographics that we have in our area.
Yeah, your dynamic is similar to many others where you've built out with apartments, you build out with cottages, so you don't want to create a product that competes with what you have, so what do? Similar to the Wando campus here that you can see, all those blue cottages are more or less the traditional model. Your front door is really addressing a street. Your independent living product is close to your central area. So if you need another product, you might be looking at a pocket neighborhood that's a little bit more of a satellite area in your campus. Focus of these designs is your front porch. And it really positions people's front porches, encouraging that social interaction, having the center green that allows people to get together and to not have the barrier that is the street. And vehicular traffic is a potential safety hazard. You don't get a lot of traffic through your communities, but people certainly don't hang out in the street or cross the street. So having these green areas associated with the front porch is a great positive for this product. And they come in all shapes and sizes. Looking at the Wando cottages, they were more of a luxury independent living product on that campus. A loft area of 620 square feet associated with over 2,000 square feet of living space. It really was a big luxury product that we designed there. Not always the case, and you're not always dealing with a flat site. We had the opportunity to tour Rose Villa together out in Portland, Oregon, Carl, and this is a community that, though we created pocket neighborhoods, they marched down a hillside all the way to the river. The independent living product is positioned, the independent living apartment product is positioned on the top of the hill with these communities marching down. What's great about that is that with the change in grade, you can take a lower level porch and pair it with an upper level porch on an adjacent cottage. So you still get that connection of the porches with the green in the middle. And when you're going down through there, it's really at a pedestrian scale. We walked through this together, and it really is intimate. That first image where you're looking down the hill is the only time you really see it that way. When you're living in the spaces and walking through those paths on the adjacent greens, it really is small and intimate.
It was a lot of fun because, we got to interact with everyone on different levels. And so it was really interesting to people loved it. They were effusive about how much they enjoyed it, and you could see them interacting. And we had a lot of fun touring that campus. That was fun. I was glad that I was able to join you for that tour.
Yeah, and I know those central greens get used for wine and cheese parties, and really every time you go around a bend, you have a different pocket of people who have their own neighborhood, they have their own events. It really encourages social interaction, so it's a nice product. Not all of the pocket neighborhoods that we've looked at have been huge. The one at Rose Villa, somewhere between 1,200 and 800 square feet, which gets to be in that moderate zone. And to take another step, the Heritage at Loman in Chapin, South Carolina, those pocket homes are clustered together even tighter. Still have all the common elements, the porches, the community center, the green in the middle, but the product is smaller. 700 to 900 square feet is really where they land, but they still have open living spaces within. a lot of access to outdoors, and central bathing and laundry facilities that serve a product of that scale. Kitchens and the laundries are, it's almost a must now that you have a full kitchen and that you have a full laundry facility. Whether people get 100% use out of them or not, it's a huge marketing tool. So when we look at pocket neighborhoods as a product, as we illustrated, it depends on what you have currently in terms of how big you decide to build. But the product itself can be anything from a luxury cottage to something that's much more moderate. So it appeals to a variety of income levels depending on what the market, people in your market are moving from. One of the things we like about it, and that a lot of our clients like about it, Carl, is that you don't have to bite off too big of a chunk. You can develop a small pocket neighborhood, see how it sells, develop another, and kind of march through your campus in increments that are very digestible.
Yeah, I think you're right on target there, and I certainly encourage all my colleagues to kind of look at that, in that, the downsizing a little bit from the traditional 2,000 square foot cottage to some of these options. We're seeing a strong appeal for that, and I think at the end of the day, it also makes it economically viable, to develop these products, and like you said, being able to do little segments at a time also gives you the ability to course correct if for some reason you need to add a different product to the campus. And you guys have been very successful at doing that, not only on our campus, but on our sister facilities in Pennsylvania as well, which I know you're going to talk about later.
Absolutely. The next product we'll talk about are the hybrid homes, which are essentially small apartment buildings. It's a nice product, especially if you have cottages and you have apartments and you're looking for something to appeal to a market of folks that you're currently not addressing. So the hybrid homes becomes kind of the best of both worlds in that scenario. We've done them in all shapes and sizes. The real, similar to the pocket neighborhoods, they're a relatively small product. You're not biting off too big of a chunk. We can build them out of wood frame construction, so the cost point is relatively low compared to a larger product. The other thing that's great as you look at these floor plans, Carl, is that all of the corner units, and oftentimes some of the units in the middle, get multiple exposures to the outdoors. And that doesn't happen with the traditional apartment project. Really, end units, the corner units, are the premium units. They get multiple exposures to the outdoor, and that's it. With the hybrid product, we've worked very hard to have multiple units in every building that have various views to different exposures of the area. And again, similar to the pocket homes, it all depends what you have and what market you're going after. We've built those units from 600 square feet all the way up to the mid 2,000 square feet sizes that are very large units. It kind of depends what your market is, and obviously anybody who's looking at this project would look at what they have, what products are they selling currently, and what's the market they're trying to address in their marketplace. So market study is essential to knowing how big and what shape your hybrid apartment building is going to take. And one of the things we've done over and over is, how do we make it fit into the context and feel like it belongs on your campus? And this is just a little study that we did to show that the hybrid building isn't so big that it becomes windows after windows after windows. It really can have an identity. It really can be a style of architecture, and it really can fit into the fabric of your community, no matter what style of architecture exists there now. Kind of a fun case study that we threw in here, Carl. It's one of your sister communities out in Elizabethtown. Truly one of the oldest retirement facilities in the country. They've been following a master plan for over 100 years, and we've been fortunate to be paired with them for about 40 years. That relationship is about 40 years old, and
wow.
We've been part of designing and building independent living products all over that campus. So this master plan is 100 years old, but we've truly built it out. They have that central Grand Lodge building in the middle, and once upon a time, they were also a healthcare campus. They were interested in taking care of of masons coming back from World War II. And the facility has since grown to be, over 3,000 residents, 2,500 employees. They have a children's home. They have every amenity that you can think of, and all kinds of independent living products, which is good and it's bad, because ultimately they become kind of the girl who has everything. And our most recent venture with the Masonic Village in Elizabethtown has been a hybrid product. Yeah. And for that very reason, they had a lot of cottage product, they had a lot of apartment product out there. So how do we provide a moderately scaled independent living building that appeals to a market that they weren't already grabbing? They certainly didn't want to be competing with themselves, and they wanted to deplete in any way the market interest in the products they had. So we looked at a number of hybrid apartments on that campus. What's interesting about that process, and just a couple statistics about it, was all wood frame, which kept the price point down. The scale of it keeps it very residential, and 2 of the units are on grade. So as you look at this, you'll notice that one side is loaded with garages. So they ultimately called these the Sycamore Townhomes to become a unique product. None of their other apartment units had structured parking, and this is a way to very cost effectively introduce a carport as part of the building and allow people a nice, safe entry to their home. What I was going to say is that this was conceived as a 2-phase project where we would build 2, and then we would come back and build 2 more. The marketing went so well that they were able to sell these units like hotcakes. And while we were building the first 2, we rolled right into the second 2, and they were full before construction was done. As you look at this, one of the nice things is that they're on the perimeter of the campus. And so this little cluster of hybrid homes feels like its own community, and they are within walking distance of a restaurant, within walking distance of a home healthcare building that you can see there highlighted in blue. So the people, I think what made these so attractive is that it was a new product. It was on the perimeter of the campus. So people who wanted to put one toe into the life care community world found this very attractive. It was a nice move for them from their home, and they didn't feel necessarily like they had jumped full into a life care community. Here's a little aerial. You can see some of those outbuildings that are owned and operated by the Masonic Village in Elizabethtown. They have a lot of amenities. I know the building on the right hosts a pharmacy and an optical vision center. So there are a lot of amenities that are very walkable. So on that perimeter, they still have a lot of amenities that they're able to take advantage of. Background too.
Phenomenal product, yeah.
Pardon?
It's a phenomenal product. I mean, it's gorgeous. It was amazing how quickly everything sold. It was like hotcakes, like you said.
The funny thing was there was some nervousness because you can see right beyond those 4 new hybrids are the original Sycamore apartments we had built back in the early 2000s, and there was some nervousness about whether these new buildings would be well received, whether it would change the feel of that area. And the response has been largely positive in that it's much more intimate. The scale is small. You still, as you get beyond these buildings, there are some shared green areas that allow it to still be very open. So the positive byproducts of having those small clusters have been well received. Here's just a kind of a nice plan that highlights specifically why these became the Sycamore Townhomes. And why that single loaded garage, a carport for every resident became something that was important and I think very marketable for this group. And this gives you a good sense of the human scale of these buildings, how approachable, a couple walking paths. The walking paths out of the Masonic Village of Elizabethtown are exquisite. They get used by the folks who live in the community, and the larger outside Elizabethtown community uses these walking paths. It's become a real part of their culture and a real part of the fabric of the campus. One of the downsides with hybrids that always comes up is it's kind of the positive and the negative, right? is that we're disconnected and we're on the perimeter, so we're going to appeal to a certain amount of the population. But now that we're on the perimeter, we're not attached to all of the amenities. So out at Wallet Communities in Toledo, Ohio, we addressed that by building this plan with its own amenity. So those buildings are not standalone. They're actually attached by a common space. There's a living room, dining room that's specifically for those residents. All the residents in the community can come there, but it serves the folks who invested in those hybrids, and it kind of eliminates that concern of we're out here on an island, we don't have a dining facility, what if something happens, you know, we're isolated, all of those things. When you provide that common space link, it certainly addresses those concerns. So right there in the center, you can see the connection and how we did that. That's just a single story building, so there are apartments above that overlook that. So it doesn't become a barrier in any way. It really becomes a nice, intimate amenity, and nice, intimate dining and living room connection. And it becomes part of their identity. If you live in one of those hybrid buildings, you have your own dining restaurant. You can invite friends from throughout the community, come hang out in your dining room. It really gives them a sense of belonging. And again, those products end up being anywhere from 800 to 1,200 square feet, nicely sized. When you do provide that central amenity, you don't feel compelled to build a lot of living space, because people have a shared living space that allows them to get out but still be in a nice conditioned space. So Carl, I think when you look at your campus, having the apartments and having the cottages, this seems like it would be a product that would fit in that gap and address a market sector that you're not necessarily capturing yet.
And I think you agree in that. I agree that as we look forward to the other components of the master plan, that some of the success we've seen on our sister campuses in Pennsylvania, we believe are going to apply very similarly. And again, it's that segmentation that we've seen in our organization, and the feedback that we're getting over the last 2 years as we've opened the different products. This is the feedback that we're getting, that parking component really becomes huge, and even on our campus is something that we're getting more and more requests for, and that someone doesn't necessarily want a full cottage. They don't want some of the apartments or amenities, like you said, that may have block views or don't have the views or access. This is going to be a perfect fit. So the board, in our discussions and our discussions with you, we see this is certainly being another addition that we'd like to add to our campus as we continue to build out, along with the pocket home concept. And I think it that way we don't have too much of one product, because there's so many different demographics that we appeal to. And when we do the market studies, it's interesting. It does reinforce having more diversity of products and more options for people to select from. And the nice part is you're building them everywhere and you're developing those products everywhere. So it's nice that you're able to bring that to our attention, and we can continue to take advantage of that partnership to develop those products. So we're super excited to be able to add this to the campus, and I just wish we could move faster.
Well, we'll get there, Carl, no doubt about it. Another thing we want to talk about, and you having a lot of land available and adjacency to various communities that will respond to this in a positive way, I'm sure. But we're seeing also, for the folks who don't have land, where do you go? There's a desire to engage the urban fabric of adjacent communities, but also to take advantage of those amenities. So I wanted to show a recent development of ours out in Lidditz, Pennsylvania, in Lancaster County. We had an opportunity to work with a development group to take an abandoned chocolate factory, the old Wilbur Chocolate Factory, entire complex, and reposition it as a multi-use product in a small town setting. Ultimately, that factory building, I'll just show a little snapshot. This is what it looked like when we started. A lot of extraneous buildings. Historic building is in there somewhere, and we decided to take out a lot of the irrelevance, preserve the historic building, and develop this kind of factory, a contemporary factory aesthetic to maintain the historic building and add a few pieces to areas where we had taken away buildings that were less attractive to tie into the fabric of Lidditz. So ultimately that building became a boutique hotel. It has 27 high-end condos in the upper levels. The lower level there on the left-hand corner is a privately run restaurant. And underneath the arcade, right there where the pedestrian crossing sign is a market. So you walk inside the market, there's coffee, there's a butcher shop, there's all kinds of boutique shops that serve the community and really ties into the fabric of Lidditz. Right Hill is an opportunity to tie a satellite campus of a retirement community to that multi-use development. One of our clients, Pleasant View Retirement Communities, opted to purchase that property and develop a pretty high-end 55-plus community that has many of the services that their main campus has, but it's different in that it's very much tied to the urban fabric of that town. It's very much tied to the industrial, contemporary feel of the Wilbur Chocolate Factory redevelopment. And you can see we carried a lot of those things, the brick, the exposed timber, into the aesthetic of the interiors of that design. So ultimately, the people that live here are going to feel very connected to that project and to the town. And we've taken a similar approach to Landis Place on King Street in downtown Lancaster, where we're taking a parcel and developing it into a satellite campus for Landis communities. See that we're pretty much building that entire parcel out just like you would in any urban development. Becomes a very unique urban living setting. Underground parking and some amenity space on the first floor. The upper levels are packed with living. One of the great things about these opportunities, Carl, is that both in the lofts at Lidditz and at the Landis community in downtown Lancaster, you're not building the amenities. All of those folks who are going to live in those apartments are going to have access to the town. I know just in Lidditz alone, within a 1 mile radius, those folks can walk to over 30 dining venues. That's infrastructure that no developer can build. You're taking advantage of an infrastructure and amenities that are just so attractive to people. So those downtown developments really become popular for that very reason. Beyond the city fabric, there's opportunities to connect with community centers, schools, libraries, universities. A lot of multi-use partners are looking for a life care community component that keeps them viable and introduces a lot of intergenerational dynamics that are very positive for the community and for all involved. We've had the opportunity to get involved with Shalom Park. Aldersgate has partnered with what is essentially a campus that has a Jewish community center and various amenities to introduce that life care community component that we talked about. So not only are we getting a multi-use development campus with a good partnership, but there's intergenerational opportunities, interfaith opportunities to create those very positive social connections. It ultimately becomes a community within a community. So you have all the amenities that exist on a campus like that. You're introducing a living environment that wasn't there before. Very, very nice partnerships. And again, the whole scale of those types of developments, walkable to all those amenities that exist. It's kind of an attractive infrastructure that, again, if you're doing it independently, it's hard to justify, hard to build and provide those amenities on your own. But if you can tie into an infrastructure that exists, it becomes a really good, popular dynamic. So again, Carl, I know we just talked about how you've been approached by different groups to create a very similar dynamic in terms of partnerships, and whether or not, eventually you'll have the opportunity to build out, whether on your campus or at a satellite location, this type of dynamic.
Yeah, Dan, we have a great relationship with the community, and as the community continues to grow, and there's just tremendous growth in the Burlington area, there's a lot of people approaching us weekly to look at the land and look at ways that we can develop projects together, and do things that we wouldn't be able to do on our own. Bring the community a little bit closer. And I think, as you pointed out in your other developments, that's positive, because to build the social fabric or try to replicate it or build restaurants and things like that, it becomes more and more challenging. So as our older downtown area, and it's a very old community, continues to expand, it's moving toward our campus. And so we're looking at those partnerships, and having been here for over 100 years, we have great relationships with the township and the community and all the legislators and the mayors. And, that's just such an opportunity that typically you'd see a separation where people weren't really thinking about how do we begin to develop things together. But now there's a lot more active dialogue, and they've always been great partners with us. When we've had to go in and have meetings with them or talk about things, I think probably in my experience, they've been very, very supportive, and I know that you've been pleasantly surprised as well when we've had to go in there and work with them. It's been very, very favorable and very positive. So I think this is definitely another unique opportunity that we're going to have for our campus as well.
Absolutely. With all of the various products we talked about, Carl, we often, almost always these days, when a project comes through the door, a new client comes through the door, they're asking to add the technology component to their facility. I know you have some experience with this that we'll get to, but you may not know that recent legislation is addressing the social isolation that has occurred as a result of the pandemic with financial opportunities to bolster technology in an effort to abate that social isolation. So I think that's going to be a real positive for New Jersey and other communities and areas that embrace that opportunity. Technology, is great, and we're absolutely of the belief that it can be part of the equation to address aging in place. But when we talk about aging in place and we talk about smart homes, we truly believe that it's a balance. It's a balance between the architecture, the building systems, and the technology to allow people to gracefully age in place with the support of those tools. Whenever we talk about this for the first time with a client, they're either coming in the door saying, hey, we want all this really cool animation, we want all this cool automation, or they're thinking the other side of the spectrum in that we actually want to provide home pharmaceuticals. We want home health. We want to be able to care for and monitor people remotely with the use of technology. Often the answer is somewhere in the middle. We certainly have all that opportunity to automate, but anything we can do to help with home health and help people stay healthy and safe in their current living environment, we're going to explore.
I know many of the projects, and especially what you did with us, was a lot of that was built in. I think the technology component of it, and I think my colleagues would agree, this pandemic has really, really focused on the fact that you need to be able to communicate with all your constituents across your campus, your families. I probably shouldn't put a plug in for our technology partner K4, but sorry, I just did it right there. We've spent a lot of time working with them and developing the relationship in Pennsylvania that we've leveraged into New Jersey. And the ability to communicate through that platform and connect all the other technologies, I believe is going to be an absolute must. Talk about the social isolation. It's critical to have those platforms. I know many times we'll talk about the elders that we take care of can't handle that technology. Well, I'm going to tell you, we taught them rapidly. They embraced it rapidly. They are involved in our development of technology, so they help us prioritize what we need. And then obviously the pandemic, enabled us to refocus on those components. But I think the communication piece, the support to eliminate that isolation, we all know it's huge. I mean, this pandemic just put people behind their doors and put them at great exposure to their own mental health, as well as our staff. But leveraging this and continue to expand it, we've accelerated the other components that we have. Our board has been very aware of giving us the resources we need to enhance this, and it's absolutely going to be essential. The back end, which we look at as well, is the ability to control utilities, save resources, stop taking down trees, left and right, by making copies of everything. But really, the communication and the platform of communication moved to be a priority very quickly that your partner should be able to help you take advantage of. And then, of course, it changes. Originally you're running copper lines and fiber optics, and now things are much more wireless and enable you to build things out. So these really are services that when someone comes to your campus, as we all know, they're looking for that. They're looking for the ability to tailor it. So it's essential, and you've integrated that on all our campuses and really helped us understand how to utilize that. And I appreciate that, and was very happy when I joined the organization to see that commitment, where for some organizations it's not as much of a priority as I think it possibly should be.
Well, your willingness to embrace the technology, Carl, I think is a testament to your commitment to your mission to care for people. So we've certainly seen that. As we were saying, the various components in terms of aging in place, we view it as a holistic thing. Kitchens and baths have to be accessible. Nobody wants it to look like healthcare situations, so we work very hard to create those barrier-free situations in kitchens and baths, giving barrier-free access to showers, to the outdoors, all the door thresholds. All of those things are also a big component of aging in place. The technology, is all over the place. We've integrated so many devices at this point. Really, there's nothing that's off the table. If it's on the market, we're able to integrate it. So, a lot of things that you don't think of as being specific to seniors, we put it in the context of, if you had it at your house coming into a community, we want to make sure it's available to you here. We think about things like on the right-hand side, the thermostat works a lot like one of those old Honeywell thermostats, but kind of the great thing we think about it is that it's also for an arthritic hand, very easy to operate. The controls, so all those things are considerations when we're integrating this technology in these devices. And as you said, Carl, the social interaction, but also the ability for your family to monitor your health and make sure your access control, that you've been up that day, that you've been up and about and moving, just that peace of mind and knowing that you can do the check-in at any given time with your family members, super important. You mentioned the integration platform earlier. That's something that every community who thinks about integrating technology or bringing this smart home tech to their community needs to keep in mind. So it all depends on what you want to do. So we'd certainly suggest that you work really hard and have those conversations. For all those reasons of social connectivity and aging in place, Carl, I think it's pretty easy answer for most communities about whether or not this is going to be something that's right for them.
Yeah, without a doubt, the smart homes and the ability to use technology is going to be critical, and then even an overlay as we begin to have the labor pressures that we have, but the ability to monitor, for families to be involved, that safety component and communication component that our communities bring, you can't underestimate the value of that. And it's something you really want to push your boards for, or push your ownership structures to make sure that that's in place.
The last item we're going to talk about here as part of our Housing 2020 is all the stuff you have to make your community viable and marketable. Here you can see a nice image of the Willow Valley community in Lancaster with their rooftop garden. Things that people weren't thinking about 10 or 15 years ago now are really a necessity and really attractive and really integral to getting folks interested in your community. during that whole pandemic, people felt sheltered and isolated. That's why these amenity spaces become so critical. And there's the pieces that you have to do, Carl, and just kind of zooming through some of the things that we did up front with your community. When we started, people were greeted by stairs. So one of the very first things we had to deal with was getting an accessible entrance to your main front door. So there are those things that you just have to address. The very next thing was to look at some of the spaces that you had and bring that hospitality flair with new finishes, new arrangement, new furnishings of all of those areas. The next thing we did is look at dining. Dining is just critical. The dining amenity, when we came to Masonic Village at Burlington, it was very much a cafeteria style, old style, institutional style serving venue. And what did we do? We branded it. It became Cafe 901. We exposed brick walls. We created very unique breakout dining experiences for people because frankly, the market is going to demand it. Anybody who has an independent living component on their campus, dining is one of the very first things people look at. So it's one of the very first things we addressed at your community, Carl.
Yeah, it's been and even now we're working on the next phase of continuing to keep that fresh because as you said, those common areas and the ability to socialize now that we're reopening them, thank goodness, because of all the different COVID restrictions, that's something you've got to keep turning over every several years to keep it fresh and keep people interested and excited. And especially now with COVID restrictions, looking at space, making sure that you can keep the safe social distancing in place and allow that socialization is going to be critical. And that's an area that you've always guided us. Don't let that get too stale too quickly. Make sure you're updating that as rapidly as possible. And one of our other dining rooms that you didn't have a picture of, we upgraded that last year. So that's a continuous process. And you're absolutely right. People love that when it's new and fresh and there's a redesign and our elders are helping us and participating in that redesign, and that really energizes them as well.
So once you have kind of all those things that you have to have out of the way, you start doing the things that you want to do, all those amenity spaces that are just kind of fun and attractive to people. The rooftop gardens and all the outdoor facilities, not only are they attractive to the marketplace, but they do help to get people outside in a time like this where you're dealing with a pandemic. But you need outside access. You need safe, social distance areas that are good for gathering. And so, we're seeing a lot of outdoor space being developed, and that's something that I think is the next step for you guys, Carl. Now that we have the inside amenities dealt with, and outside amenities certainly makes a lot of sense. It doesn't always have to be something that's built or something that's programmed. The food truck era is upon us again, and we have lots of communities who are bringing in food trucks, creates unique kind of rotating dining venues that are just a lot of fun. And as I said, all of those outdoor opportunities allow us to keep people safe. It's a lot of fun. Those spaces are wonderful. Access to the outdoors has all the medically proven advantages of keeping people healthy. But especially in a pandemic, being able to create access to the outside and access to people in a safe environment is something that's paramount. There's hospitality-driven spaces on the inside too, small-scale gathering spaces that allow for social distancing and for you to be in a safe environment and engaged during the months where you might not be able to get outside, especially in New Jersey, Delaware. You don't get 12 months out of the year where you can be outside. So the inside spaces that are warm but allow enough space for people to meet safely are also extremely important. One of the last amenities I'll talk about, Carl, again, at your sister campus there in Elizabethtown. Some of these amenities are driven by the residents. Out in Elizabethtown, they had a 46-member committee of craftsmen who did woodworking. We're fortunate enough to have a donor who said, look, we're tired of working in a garage. We want something bigger, something better. We developed the Rooster Wood Shop for them. It hosts the current members and allows for future growth. All the modern amenities of any good wood shop. And that group is now working safely in an environment that allows them to take their woodworking to the next level. But what this has really also become, Carl, is a marketing centerpiece for the Masonville town.
I can honestly say I don't think that I've seen a wood shop like that anywhere, Dan. So nice job.
It's a lot of fun. I'll give all the credit to the guys at the shop that helped me work my way through understanding and knowing what it takes to build a wood shop. So just to conclude here, you know, a couple of the things we just want to make sure we stress is that every market is unique. You know, so those sizes of the pocket neighborhoods, the sizes of the hybrids, it all depends on your market study. It depends on what product you have on your campus now. Diversity can only strengthen your position. Certainly look at those opportunities for multi-use developments. There are opportunities to engage your community and create a unique benefit to your residents and address challenges you might already be facing. Bigger is not always better. Kind of depends what you have now. You don't want to compete with your existing product, and the market might not be demanding at that point in time a bigger product. So certainly the smaller, more moderate products are going to be attractive to a certain market sector. It's important to make sure you know what market you're going after when you're looking at that. We talked about technology. We talked about how important it is. It's not a one-legged stool. The architecture and the building systems are certainly important, but we would say is that certainly moving forward during the pandemic and beyond, it's going to be a critical component to aging in place and keeping people socially connected. So take advantage of some of those programs that the state of New Jersey is offering to get those things in place. And finally, design forward amenities that support flexibility and resilience. It's not all about the living environment or the apartment unit or the cottage unit. People are coming to your facility for the amenities that you have to offer, their dining experience, their social experiences. All of those things are extremely important. So with that, we are going to conclude. I believe we've reached our hour. Thank you so much for joining us for our presentation of Housing 2020 at the Leading Age New Jersey and Delaware Conference. Take care.